Howdy.
Howdy.
Well, that was the wrong opening, really, for me because I did my trip to Texas like a month and a half ago. How? What have you been up to for the last week?
Oh, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, but
That's
that's
part of the
something.
problem, isn't it? I don't know what it is, but everything just ramps up more and more and more and more, and I've been missing more and more of the news. Is one of the interesting things about this podcast is I don't get to read as much about EV stuff as I might necessarily want to. But us doing this podcast kind of forces me. I don't know with you if it's the same way, but you've actually got to stop and like,
Collaborate and listen.
yeah. Yes.
Phil is back with a brand new edition.
Speaking of which, I'm Phil Royle. I am one of the podcast hosts here who doesn't have time to do much of anything anymore. So listen to what I have to say because apparently it's well thought out and not just flying by the seat of my pants. I've been doing content creation for years and
I
on the
like that.
blog and the podcast and t-shirts, whatcar.com/store. But the real thing that I'm going to push you toward is youtube.com/ at the what car. See our smiling faces there. And that is
Are
now,
now and maybe future home.
yeah, it could be. I mean,
I don't know.
YouTube's kind of, I don't know if you've heard this, but it's really taken off. I think YouTube's going places.
Maybe. I think you might be onto something.
Are you going any places?
I'm staying put right here wherever there is.
Well, then you should tell us who you are.
Ed
You're sticking
Sanchez,
around.
um, the Watt Car co-founder and contributor, and day job automotive electronics industry analyst. Tesla owner for the time being, although that's I'm not as proud of that as I once was, but neither am I ashamed. But that's a whole other story.
I've got a vinyl cutter. I should make you some graphics for the back. I've seen a number of those. Uh,
Some anti-Elon propaganda.
Now, the thing I like about EVs recently being probably what, 2019, 2020, 21,
Ish.
something like that, is that they got more exciting. They weren't, they were a lot of compliance cars. There were things like the Spark that were hard to get. Like, now the Spark is kind of cool. I say that. Spark's kind
Yeah,
of cool. The
400
early,
pound feet of torque.
yeah,
That's
the
nothing to
first couple
sneeze at.
years
Yeah.
ones, they didn't limit the torque. So it was just like, it was like 195 with tires. You couldn't put wider tires on because of the packaging. And then all the torque in the world. But the cars got far more exciting through the years, and
Mhm.
you got these other cars that weren't compliance cars. So now let's talk about the Nissan Leaf.
The Nissan Leaf, the favorite whipping boy of compliance cars, and like, haha, look at this.
It's the compliance car that could. It's stuck around now, apparently, for a third generation.
So it's kind of I'd kind of make the analogy of the caterpillar into the butterfly with this maybe.
You think?
How
It's
well
getting
maybe
close. I wouldn't say it's a butterfly just
okay.
yet, but
Well,
it's
maybe
it's a
not styling
mighty
wise, but I'd say spec wise, this is I mean, without a doubt, the biggest transformation in its history.
it's a mighty fine looking chrysalis.
Yeah. There you go. So yeah, so we've seen pictures of it. So this is not necessarily new, but we have more details on the specifications. So basically, it's morphed from a compact hatchback to a compact crossover, I would say. Um, and it's looks to me kind of like a mini Aria to me.
That was exactly what I thought
Yeah.
was. This is an Aria, but then there's other angles of it.
Yes. Um, styling wise or like otherwise.
Styling wise, I think from the back
Yeah.
it's got what is now I'm blanking. 350, wasn't it the 350Z?
350Z. The
350Z
tail
tail
lights.
lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Maybe.
back of it's like a sports car. The front of it's like an Aria with a color match nose instead of the
Hmm.
black nose.
Hmm.
And then the side is just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, but if you look closely, you'll notice there are charging ports on both sides.
So you're gonna have to tell me about that, but tell me first about battery. What's the
Okay,
range?
significantly larger battery. So 75 kilowatt hours. I think the previous model, I want to say was 64, 66
Sounds
kilowatt
about right.
hours.
Sounds about right.
So they're claiming it's the range of the range is 259 to 303 miles, and that's depending on the trim, tire size, so on and so forth. So, but in that ballpark. Um, Power wise, 214 horsepower and 261 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty respectable, I think.
No, it sounds
That's
good.
that's on the higher trims. I guess the S trim, which is kind of the base model, is 174 horse, 254 pound-feet. Um, so peak horsepower, I think, is the same as the outgoing model, but I think it's quite a bit more torque. Anyway, I think that's where the edge is.
The Leaf is one of those things that
Yeah,
I haven't paid much attention to. So you could tell me anything. You could
you
tell
say,
me the
"Oh yeah,
last one
sounds
like
great."
shot rockets from its butt, and I would be like, sure, why not? It's just not on my
Yeah.
radar.
So interestingly, even though it's a crossover, and I really didn't dig too deep into the specs, but evidently is 3 inches shorter. But I'm assuming just based on its appearance and form factor, it's a little bit taller. But the drag coefficient is actually a little bit better than the outgoing model. Um, so it's 0.26, and I guess the previous model is 0.29. So anyway, also has vehicle to load, kind of like the Hyundai models, the EGMP. So I
Hmm.
don't know if that's like a dongle and with a little plug on it, or exactly how that works, but you can export power from it supposedly, and it has a heat pump HVAC system. So as most EVs do now, so that's not you know
Well, that
part of
was, didn't the early Leafs not have a heat pump at all? And that was their problem in like cold. There was
well
some
the
like,
early Leafs had a lot of issues.
so we won't get into that. All right.
They yeah. Anyway,
So what about the plugs?
okay, so and I kind of went over this in my mind, and I was like, hey, well, wait a minute, that makes no sense. But then I was like, oh, well, maybe. Okay, so unlike I would say the majority of EVs on the market today, they either follow one of two kind of paradigms, I guess, for lack of a better term. They have a combination J72, J1772 CCS port. So basically, for level two, you just plug in the top part, and then you have a little flap that opens up on the bottom for the two DC fast charging plugs, and you have a big, huge, you know, plug for that. Or you have NACS, which is the Tesla type plug, and that handles both AC and DC. But Nissan said, "Nah, we're going to do our own thing." So,
Which has
uh,
been a Leaf thing from the beginning.
yeah, with Chatamo, yeah,
Yeah.
they've always kind of done their own thing. So, I'm not exactly sure what I think about this. I see the logic of it, and I'm like, okay, I don't, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's interesting, and I think they kind of may be on their own on this, but maybe not. Anyway, so it has a J1772 port on the driver's side and an NACS curb side.
Are these at
So
the front or the back?
the front there, if you look at the pictures, it looks like they're both on the front fenders.
Okay.
So at first I was
Right where
like,
you'd hit somebody. Excellent. Gotcha.
well, it's like behind the wheel wells, not
Oh,
not like
okay. All
like
right. Oh
front
no, I
front.
see. Standard plug, standard electric, like, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right in front of the front doors,
Yeah.
basically. Anyway, um, so I was like, hey, I'm not sure if that makes sense, because I'm like, well, wouldn't you want the J72 curbside? Because it seems like we're seeing the emergence of companies like, It's Electric, as an example, that do curbside charging. You'd want, presumably you'd want the J1772 on the curbside, and you'd want the NACS on the other side. But then I thought about it, and it's like, okay, so most Tesla superchargers you back in, and the they have relatively short cables, at least the earlier versions of the chargers, and you plug it into the left rear, at least in North America. Um, but I thought about this. If you pull a nose first into, wait a minute, this is messing me up.
So they've got
Let's say
NACS
curbside.
curbside is what you're saying in your notes. So
So it would be
curbside
on the opposite of
would
the
be
driver's side.
would be on the passenger side. So if you nosed into a supercharger, then
Yes.
it
Okay. So
would be
that, yeah,
correct.
you're right. So
Yeah.
if you nose into a supercharger, it will be on the correct
Hmm.
side to plug in, I guess. I think.
Yes.
That
And then
making sense?
1772 on the driver's side.
Yeah.
And what's the
Which
purpose of that?
I
Maybe most of the 1772 level twos are on the driver's side. I don't know. Um, my question to you is, and maybe this is just a problem I have because I drive a variety of cars. I have
mhm,
three of
mhm,
my own cars. And then on top of that, I'll test cars periodically.
mhm,
I'll go and I travel quite a bit, so I get a lot of
mhm,
rental cars. And I am forever using the triangle on the fuel level thing on the car. How
mhm.
you got your fuel gauge and there's a little gas pump symbol, and then there'll be
Oh,
a
and the little
triangle.
little
And
pointer.
and the
Yeah.
triangle points to the side. Now, even on my own three cars, I have to look at that sometimes to
Mhm,
remind me which side the thing's on.
mhm.
Are you at all going to remember that?
I think
And
there's going to be a little bit of a
you see
yeah.
people regularly pull up at gas stations and then have to circle around and change the side that they're on because
That
they didn't remember.
or if you like go to Costco, they got those huge long hoses and people like draping them over
Yep,
the top of their cars and like
it's already an
yeah.
issue when you're only trying to put gasoline in the car.
Hmm.
People
No,
still haven't
it's
been able to remember that. Now you've got to be like, oh, well, I've got 1772 on one side, NACS on the other.
well,
What's
yeah.
the thing I'm pulling up to? And is the future when they start transferring over, you may get to some that were 1772, but have now transferred over to NACS.
So to me, this begs the question is, and I haven't seen because this just dropped the same day we're recording this. If the NACS is only DC, or if it's also DC and level two and J72. But
One can
I don't
only
know.
hope it's as confusing as possible.
Well, no. So, I mean, I'm sure they did this thinking, oh, we'll just add more convenience. But you think they're just adding confusion?
Yeah, I'd put them both
Yeah.
on the same side. Commit.
Yeah.
Either put them both on the same side or commit to one and
Hmm.
go with it and include a
Hmm.
dongle,
Hmm.
or have it like why can't they do like a magic dock kind of thing? I don't even know. I'd have to think about it. But like how the
Hmm.
magic dock has a thing that releases separately. Why not have something where you'd push through if you've got like, I'm sure somebody could design it where you've got like a 17, like a CCS thing, but then if you push, it kind of like vanishes into an ACS plug. I'm sure it's
Interesting.
possible in some weird Goldbergian like or Goldbergian,
That's a
Rube,
term.
is it? No, but
Goldbergian. Yeah.
I'm thinking Rube Goldberg. Yes, whatever. That you could come up with some device that is like somehow the magic
Yeah.
dock,
Yeah.
where it's one thing that does two things. Whatever it is, even if they're side by side, whatever. It just simplicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this
I
is
may,
not
you
simple.
know what? I may want to actually reach out to Nissan, see if we could have someone come on and kind of explain their rationale and why they decided this because I can
I'm,
see both sides of it. Like
I'm sure it made sense.
that they say, oh, we'll just add convenience. And, the majority of level two plugs are still, J1772. So we'll support that, but we'll also add NACS. But, over time, things are going to shift toward NACS. But, oh, this reminds me, I can't remember exactly which episode it was, but when the new RAV4 was introduced and the plug-in model, and they decided to stick with J1772. Do
Yeah.
you remember that?
Yeah.
So we kind of, I mean, a little bit apples and oranges because this is a pure EV and the RAV is a plug-in hybrid, or at least that version of it was. But yeah, I mean, this gets back to your thing of just like choose one and just stick with it. But
Yep.
I
And
think having, yeah,
look at which way the tide's going too.
yeah,
And then choose the one that you want. And right now I am no Tesla fan. I would look at any alternative to a Tesla,
hmm,
especially right now,
hmm,
versus getting a Tesla. Like there's a guy down the street from me got a Ionic 6, and I'm like,
hmm,
man, it's a handsome looking car.
hmm,
Uh, that's great. I would look at many alternatives before getting a Tesla. This should only have NACS on
yeah.
it.
All right,
That
so
is
we've
the
made
way they're going. Tesla one. That is now
deal with it.
that is now a standard that goes beyond Tesla. Tesla
Yeah.
came up with the right product, the right design, the right technical specifications, the right
And
form
the rest of the
factor,
industry is adopting it.
and the rest of the industry is adopting it the way God intended it to be. Go with that.
Anyway, yeah. So we've beaten that horse half to death.
Well, you
So
said that we
anyway,
could spend 20 minutes on that alone, and
well,
you're
we're 15. Oh,
yeah, we're
a
only
little
15.
short. Okay. Anyway, um, so I know at one point or another you kind of expressed fleeting interest in getting a used Model S.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
make those comments about Tesla. I used is different because I'm not really
yeah,
filling the pockets of the
the
company when
money
you
has
buy
already
used.
been made.
And
Yeah,
also I'm a sucker for a good deal. So yes, a Model S would fit all of my needs.
yeah. The only thing is some of the earlier ones are well into, hundreds of thousands of miles. Batteries have kind of degraded.
Hmm.
You're kind of like, eh.
Yeah, you
But
don't really know what you're getting. The battery seems to degrade at an okay rate, but when I buy used vehicles, I'm buying them at the tail end of their life
mhm,
where it's kind of unknown
mhm. You're
territory.
gonna get whatever life you can get out of them and
Yeah, I'm the one that
take your
experiences the
chances.
bizarre problems.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess out of spec uh, got a used Model S 70D with, gosh, I think they said like over 400,000 miles on it, and they
Just
said it's
barely broken in.
still ran, still worked, but they decided to swap out the battery, so they did a swap from a 70 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt hour battery, I guess from a salvaged Model S, and they hooked it up and it worked. At first, when they first hooked it up, the dashboard lit up like 3 Mile Island and like all these trouble codes. But I guess they were able to clear those out, and they said it works fine. Um, but I guess because of some of the underlying architectural changes over the years, you can only do this up to like 2021 models. And I think starting in 2022, they don't, because I don't know if you remember early on, Tesla was kind of toying with the battery swap model.
Hmm.
They showed that demonstration. They
Yep.
said, "Oh, look, we can do it." So, but I guess with the 2022 refresh, they kind of got rid of that. So the battery in the 22 and up Model S's is more permanent, so to speak.
They glued it in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's it's not as easy to swap
Yeah.
in and out.
Yeah.
So if you have an older Model S, I guess you can do this up to 2021. You can swap in an older battery. There is a little, you know, um, electronic wizardry you have to do to clear the trouble codes, but it is possible.
I was
So
going to say,
yeah.
I'm impressed with Tesla's forward thinking, where you could
Hmm.
take an older model, put a newer battery in, it could recognize the
Hmm.
battery, it could,
Yeah, it's
the,
interesting you say that because that's, I guess, uh, usually the batteries are synced to the vehicle like by VIN.
yeah.
If there's a mismatch, it'll throw trouble codes. So that's what happened in this case. And it said, oh, VIN mismatch between the vehicle and the battery. But I guess once they were able to go into kind of the more deeper level of the diagnostics, they were able to clear that out. But anyway,
Yeah.
so all I'm saying is if you're so inclined, you find a nice used Model S, high mileage batteries, seen better days. You do have options if
Did
you're
they say
so
how much
inclined.
this cost? I mean, they got it out of a
I don't
salvage car, so,
I don't know. I don't know if they got into that. I think there is a video associated with it. So
and I'm guessing it's not something I could do in my driveway because
they
that
say if
battery
you
is
have
going
a
to be
lift, you
heavy.
could,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, the pack itself is probably give or take about 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So
I imagine you need a lift and then like a forklift to
probably,
like you probably
probably.
need multiple things to lift. But yeah, no, I was thinking like how great that, Tesla was forward thinking enough that the computer could recognize it and then could do whatever conditioning it would be doing for like pre-charge conditioning
Mhm.
and all the stuff that it does in the background and that you can tell it to do certain things, whatever. But then remember back in the day when batteries, like when phones had alternate batteries,
Oh,
like
swappable
you could just
batteries, or
change the
you could
battery
remove it.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I had a Samsung at one point and it came with I don't even remember, like a 1,000 milliamp battery. I don't remember what the
Yeah.
number is. But then I swapped it out with one of those like giant things. It's like an inch
Hmm.
thick.
Hmm.
And you got this huge case, but it could go for like 3 days straight with heavy
Hmm.
usage on the
Hmm.
thing. And the phone figured it out. Like you plugged
Hmm.
it in, it just worked. So maybe it's not as difficult as
Hmm.
I would think. Maybe it is just the computer goes, oh, well, this is empty, this is full, and it doesn't know necessarily the difference. I don't know. It's great that you could do it.
Yeah.
Long story short, that's good on Out of Spec for doing it, and good on
Yeah.
for the world for being able to.
Yeah. I mean,
Because
it's
there's
just kind of
recycling, but what's
mhm,
better than recycling is reusing.
reusing. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
if you never put it in the landfill or in the machine that recycles something, because that impacts the environment too, the
Sure.
best
Sure.
thing you can do is keep things going.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to tell myself when I cheap out and I buy used vehicles is I'm reusing, I'm being doing this better for the environment. Makes me feel good.
Well, I'll tell you what would possibly also be better for the environment is getting more diesel trucks off the road.
No,
No, you don't think so?
no, it's roll coal. That's all we got to do.
Anyway, so I guess evidently Tesla is looking beyond North America for semi sales. So I guess someone found like a job posting or some guy changing his LinkedIn status to be the semi chief for the EMEA region, which is Europe, Middle East, Africa, if you didn't know the lingo. Anyway,
Which I don't. So thank you.
anyway, so I guess yeah, they're looking to expand that, but I mean, then Trump comes into town, and with this big beautiful tariffs. Um, so I'm just wondering, you know, I guess it depends on your perspective. If you think Trump's policies are going to be permanent, or if his successor, whoever it is, rolls back a lot of these things. Um, and ultimately what, great deal he reaches with the EU, I guess. But um, there has been some speculation the Gigafactory Berlin could at some point expand to include semi production. That's highly speculative on my part. I have no solid knowledge of this, but it could happen
I originally, when I saw this story, I was like, man, our trucks in America are very different from trucks in
in
Europe.
Europe. Yeah.
But then I got thinking about it, and the Tesla Semi is very much a cab over design, which is the
Effectively. I
kind of
mean,
the
there's no
predominant
engine
thing in
per
Europe.
se, but
Yeah, but in Europe, it's very much like the cab over.
cab
We
over. Yeah.
in America,
That's
we
it.
have
Yeah.
the engine at the front for
Mhm.
whatever reason. I'm not a trucker. I don't know uh,
I know
why and why not.
kind of. So I do know a little bit about this. So this dates back to I think the Carter era. Um, so there used to be in the 70s there were like overall length limitations on semi trucks. Hence why you saw, I don't know if I'd say it was like 50-50, but you'd see a mix of both cab over and conventional cabs
Yeah, there
on the
used to be a
road.
lot more cab over.
And then at a certain point, the cab overs effectively just kind of disappeared. And all you saw were what we call in North America's conventional cabs
What a truck should,
with,
what an 18 wheeler should be.
yeah, America, with the engine in the front and the cab behind it. Um, so some of it dates back to that. You can still special order cab overs from some brands, and I guess a friend of mine who's more familiar with this said the movie studios like the cab overs because they're more maneuverable on lots, and they can turn tighter and
Yeah,
this
I
and
could
that.
totally
So
see that. Yeah.
the movie studios still order the cab overs, but everyone else likes the conventional cabs. Um, yeah, but to your point, what's interesting about the Tesla Semi is it has a little bit of a nose. I wouldn't say it's exactly like a
Yeah, it's
European style cab
yeah,
over,
it's not a traditional cab over.
but it's not. It doesn't have this huge nose like the traditional American trucks. Um, and the other interesting thing about it, it has a central mounted steering wheel, so it's not on the left or the right. The driver kind of sits in the middle. He's flanked by two displays, and then there's two. Uh, it's I think the day cab is a three seater, so you have the driver in the middle, and you have two kind of outboard seats behind the driver, kind of like the original. Was it the McLaren F1?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that had a similar seating arrangement too. So so anyway, I'm assuming that would be allowed in either right hand drive or left hand. So either the UK and Ireland as well as continental Europe. I'm guessing it could go either way because it's and I think Tesla's made comments before like when people have asked them, will this meet like, global standards for, specs, safety, dimensions, whatever, and they say, yeah, we designed it to be a global vehicle to work in the U.S., to work in Europe. So I don't know. And
No,
in the
that
trials, I've heard about it. I think with Frito-Lay and Pepsi and stuff, it's done pretty well. I
yeah, I
mean, it
mean,
does
they've only had to
require,
shut down one freeway due to a giant fire they couldn't
well,
put out. But
other than that,
aside
but
from
yeah,
that,
let's not talk about that. But in terms of range, in terms of acceleration, their ability to go uphill, um, I mean, all the reviews, the real world driver reviews say, yeah, this thing's great. It's got
yeah,
tons of power. Diesels just kind of struggle going up the hill sometimes. They say this thing just zips up, no problem.
yeah.
Um,
No,
you
I
just
think
have to
this
have
would be
provision for charging, obviously, but
these would probably be great for Europe, where
yeah,
it's not exactly the long distances. I mean, here, if you're running cross country in a truck or
yeah,
long
it's like
distance anyway in
2,000
a truck,
miles. Yeah.
yeah, it like you can be all the way from one side of Europe to the other
Hmm.
in the distance that you're going like halfway across America.
Hmm.
So uh, maybe it makes more sense in Europe and then local
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
Frito-Lay and Pepsi are doing, because I think that's in California that
Hmm. They're
those
doing
two are
that
doing
trial.
it,
Yeah.
and those are fairly local. So that would be probably equivalent
Hmm.
somewhat.
So, but what's interesting is, as much as the U.S. likes to thump its chest and like, America first and we're the greatest. You can actually get more powerful engines in the European trucks than the American semis, and you can get most American semi trucks are inline six diesels. You can get quite a few V8s in Europe. Actually, Scania is actually kind of famous for their V8 diesels in Europe, and like their like max power and torque is like way above what you can get in the U.S.
Interesting.
And they said the reasoning with that is the routes are shorter, but the roads are a lot steeper. Like going over the Alps, and a lot of the routes are a lot more mountainous. So they need the extra power to kind of make the
Yeah.
grade, so to speak.
In
Whereas,
which case, this is
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. Whereas, in the U.S. predominantly it's kind of flat.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
there are some passes like
y-
Eisenhower Pass and stuff, but if you're, mostly through like Kansas and the Midwest, it's just straight and flat. So anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I think it could be a good fit, but we've been reading some of the sales reports, and I mean, there's some markets where Tesla's like dropped off a cliff, but I think in the commercial segment, they're more pragmatic. They're more like, will this save us money? Will we make more money? Cost
Yeah.
of operation, cost of maintenance.
Yeah.
So
No, at the end of the day,
yeah.
like and as an individual, I've
Hmm.
got a choice. If I've got $50,000 to spend on a vehicle, I can go and say, well, I don't agree with Elon Musk's politics. So I will instead go and buy a Mach E or a Hyundai or whatever. There are
Blazer EV or
options.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can just make that decision. But here, in a business, you would look at the spreadsheet and you'd say, well, they've cut my budget by 3% this year.
Hmm.
And so I got to
Fuel is
decrease.
this percentage of my budget.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
now need to decrease my operating costs. And how can I do that? Well, we've got this budget for replacing these vehicles, and that can reduce the operating cost here. And over the course of 10 years, it would equal out to this and this and this.
Hmm.
They don't
Hmm.
really, they don't care, you
Yeah.
know? And when there's no other options, then there you
Well,
go.
except there are. The Chinese are
Yeah.
moving pretty fast in this market,
Yeah, and
but
I think Mercedes didn't wasn't Mercedes
yeah,
had their truck that
they
they
have one. Volvo has one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Tesla needs to get in because
Yeah.
they need to be in that market and people need to be buying them now.
Hmm.
They can't wait because they've kind of tarnished their name a little bit. They need to
Well,
start moving
Elon's
fast.
tarnished their name.
Yes. And
Yeah.
before I was thinking, man, if they just got rid of Elon, like I think the company completely recover. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
Now
I
I
don't know.
just don't know. I wonder if they've actually tarnished their name. Not to the point that they're going out of business. Like, don't get
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
wrong.
I
They're
mean,
still number one. They're still the
like
leader.
I would say a couple of years ago, it was not even a question whether I'd be a repeat buyer. I was like, I'd absolutely buy another Tesla. And based on my ownership experience, predominantly, I still kind of feel that way. But I'm not as 100% on that as I used to be.
Yeah.
Like I see the Rivian R3X. I see, like the Ionic 5, I see some other models coming out, and I'm like, you know what? I could do that. So, yeah. Anyway,
So could you do a ZR1?
I actually loved Corvettes growing up. As a kid, I was like obsessed with Corvettes. Um, and I remember when the original ZR1 came out, I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
375 horsepower.
0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds or whatever it probably
Whoa.
was.
Yeah. And now it's like, oh, yawn.
Yeah. So that's got, you put gas in that thing. So
Yeah. What's it
why?
doing on here?
Yeah.
Well, they added an electric motor to the front of the ZR1, and now they're calling it the ZR1X.
Oh, so they made an NSX. That's nice.
Effectively, except this one's got a lot more bald eagles and hamburgers in it, but
Gold chains.
gold chains, yeah.
Or bald
Um,
eagles wearing gold chains while eating hamburgers.
exactly.
Yep.
Um, so anyway, so this is basically that ZR1 version of the E-Ray, effectively. So the E-Ray is the Stingray Corvette with a front motor hybrid. So this is basically the ZR1 hybrid. So a lot of people were expecting this variant to be called the Zora, which was not the case. In homage to Zora Koznetsov, one of the kind of, I guess you could say, the father of the modern Corvette. I don't know if he was involved with the 53, but I think certainly from like the late 50s onward, he was
Yeah.
like
It's the name that always comes up when you talk about Corvettes.
kind of like the iconic figure behind the Corvette. Anyway, so who knows what may come next? Maybe a plug-in hybrid ZR1. I don't know. That'll be the Zora. I don't know. You heard it here first. Anyway,
We made it up here first.
exactly. So anyway, total power output of 1250 horsepower, as if the Mare 1064 from the ZR1 was not enough. So with that, they're saying 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. We don't have pricing. Speculation is going to be at least 200,000, which I'd say is probably pretty fair.
So I don't think you mentioned it. The electric motor up front is 186 horsepower, 145 pound-feet of torque.
Mhm.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that alone would power like a Spark or something,
Or a Leaf.
or a Leaf. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so this is, I mean, this is kind of ridiculous amounts of power, but Merca.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I wonder if that would go to something like you said, a plug-in and then potentially all electric and
Well, they've said they're at some point going to do an all electric Corvette, but when that's coming and what form that's going to take, we don't know.
I
There's
bet
still
it was.
speculation about a Corvette SUV. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
there was that. I forgot all about that. I washed that from my memory. Uh,
so yeah, but anyway, I mean, we're still talking like insane amounts of power here.
no, it's
Yeah,
good. It's good. It's all good. I like it.
yeah.
So Xiaomi could probably beat it with its SU7 or the SU7 Ultra
Hmm.
because
So that also beat another pretty big icon of the EV world.
yeah. Now this was what caught my eye was it beat the Rimic Nevera the Nürburgring time, which that's pretty good.
That's a
So
pretty high bar.
the Nevera did it in 7 minutes, 5 seconds, 0.298. And the Xiaomi did it in 7 minutes, 4 seconds, 0.957. So not much faster. But now keep in mind, the Nevera is a $2.4 million two-seater super ultra hypercar, whatever.
Yeah, with 2,000 horsepower. Yeah.
And the Xiaomi SU7 Ultra is a four-door sedan
Hmm.
that costs about $74,000 if you could buy it in America.
Yeah.
And it turns the same, roughly, I would say, the same lap times. All the news items were it beat the Rimic Nevera. I would say it turned the same lap time.
Yeah.
You're talking within half a second.
Just doing the quick math. I mean, this is like 1/30th the price. I don't even know.
It so it
It's like,
it doesn't have the panache, the stature of the Nevera,
yeah.
but you can drive to the store and put your whole family in it. And
Yeah.
it's quite amazing. So it also beat the McLaren 720S, the C8 Corvette Z06, Mercedes AMG GTR, and the old 991.2. I don't even know how you say those anymore. Porsche 911 GT3. So it's fast.
Yeah.
Why is this not in America? Why can I not buy this? Why?
Because of big beautiful tariffs, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. This is one of the reasons why Detroit, Munich, Wolfsburg are all trembling in their boots about China.
Yeah, I mean they said,
Yeah.
just China's the big, not really the big bad, but like when China comes to these shores, like it's it's going to be a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, repair costs and, you can't buy parts and early on it's going to be difficult and, who'd buy the car and all this stuff. And now I'm like $73,000, $74,000 car. That's
For
that.
1,200 horsepower.
Yeah. Like, okay. I don't see a downside to this anymore.
Yeah.
Looks
Yeah.
good. I mean, things in China, like everything's made in China and everything's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that the car is going to be like fall to pieces. It's not going to be like a Yugo.
No.
So
Well, speaking of which, and this is actually from a few weeks ago, so this isn't exactly breaking news, but just kind of as an anecdotal example. I guess Inside EVs had a post on how Chinese EVs hold up over the longer term, and they found like I guess a ride hailing, effectively like an Uber driver in Brazil, who had a BYD Dolphin, which is their little compact model. Um, and he's got 130, 200, because Brazil's using the metric system.
not the
Um,
freedom units that we use.
no, so 220,000 kilometers, which is roughly 135,000 miles. Um, Fairly minimal maintenance. He replaced the coolant and differential oil at 124,000 miles, and claims it still has the original brakes and rotors. And he said, other than that, the only major maintenance has been the cabin filter, and he says it's held up fine.
Let me defend piece of crap gas powered economy cars for a second. I know people who can drive for 124,000 miles and probably never even change the engine oil.
Oof. That's living on the edge. I don't know if I do that.
So, I mean, my Kia's got 122,000 miles on it. I never changed transmission fluid on the thing. All I've ever done is change the engine oil.
Well, at
And
least you've changed the engine oil.
yeah, so I've changed the engine oil. But the idea, I think I'm on my second set of brakes. So
Hmm.
this seems completely reasonable to me. This
Hmm.
seems they're doing a story saying that, oh, look at the low maintenance. I guess that's the angle
Hmm.
there. And I
Hmm.
look at that and say, this is what I would expect.
This is like
Like,
minimum table stakes for you.
yes, this is where it should be. This should be the
Yeah.
baseline of
Hmm.
that. Show me a vehicle with 400,000 miles on it that's on the original brakes, and all that you've done is replace the coolant and the differential fluid.
Hmm.
But that, I mean, so that's good. It's meeting at least the minimum requirement that I
Yeah.
think a modern vehicle should do. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, you go back like probably 10 years in Chinese vehicles, and they
Hmm.
probably wouldn't meet what I would view as the minimum mechanically
Yeah.
sound, requirement for
Well,
what I would
I
expect.
think I've seen a real kind of almost philosophical change in how the Chinese approach vehicle development. Is previously they do like knockoffs of Western vehicles. Like I can't even remember, but like I can't remember who made this, but someone did like a blatant knockoff of like a BMW X5,
And yeah,
but
they
it had a
all looked.
little puny little four cylinder, engine or whatever.
It was
And
all like you
yeah,
described the vehicle over the phone, and then the
and
person
they
designed it
make
and
it.
they drew it, and that was
Yeah,
all Chinese cars, not
yeah.
long ago.
So they used to have a very outside in kind of way of designing cars that basically make clones, and they didn't matter if they were kind of garbage quality or whatever, but they were like very obviously trying to emulate Western models. And now they're making original looking models. They're doing their own R&D, their own engineering, very good engineering, I would argue, um, and really taking a more holistic view of vehicle development rather than just let's just copy this, you know.
And that's
So
ultimately what's going to lead to their world
yeah,
domination of the automotive industry.
Yeah.
is they've done that in a very small amount of time. We've had this conversation
Yeah.
before. They probably looked at what the Korean manufacturers did
Hmm.
and went, wow, it took Honda 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
build up its thing. Hyundai managed to do it in like 10 years, whatever it
About
was.
10. Yeah.
And then China's probably looked at that and gone,
We can do it in 5 to
yeah,
7.
we can do this. We can cut that in half. Like Hyundai cut it in
Yeah.
half, we could cut it in half.
Yeah.
And I have no reason to believe they can't,
Yeah.
especially with what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Get me that Xiaomi.
Yeah.
And, I'll need some money too. Get me the money as well. Because I still can't. 74,000 sounds like a good deal for that car.
I'm still kind of partial to the Zeekr, but yeah, I'd look at the Xiaomi.
No, I do wonder. These supercars sound great that they've got.
Hmm.
But I do wonder what their economy cars are like.
I mean, evidently not too bad. I mean, bang for the buck, but
All signs
we'll
seem to
see.
indicate that, as with the BYD Dolphin. But
Yeah.
I do kind of wonder: are they crap inside? Are they like what are they?
Well,
But
I
I
mean,
don't think I'll have to wonder that for too long.
no, I'd say we're probably going to see Chinese brand models. I would guess in about 5 years.
And you've mentioned
Would
this
guess.
before, like we
Yeah.
already do. We've got Lotus here, and we've got Polestar
Volvo.
here,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Polestar.
and
Yeah.
I've got friends with the Polestar, and they love the car
Hmm.
with the three, and they're just, or is it
Hmm.
the two, whatever the sedan is. It's so
2, I think.
the
Yeah.
two. Yeah, I know a couple people with the two, and they love it.
Hmm.
Like no complaints. I mean, they're not like wearing Polestar shirts or anything, but I mean, it gets them where they want to go. They're happy with the vehicle.
Yeah.
They're not trying to convert anybody or anything to a new religion.
No.
God, it's all like religion references I'm making this week. All right, you want to call it?
Yeah. I'd say that's an episode.
It's been called. Time of death is
Oh, yikes.
no different kind of
Hopefully
call.
not.
All right. Everything we talked about, links will be in the show notes. You can find us on social medias, which I don't really care about. What I do care about is if you just share us on social media. So find the podcast wherever you want to find it, whether it's YouTube or one of the other podcast players, and you just share it out. We do blog posts periodically when we're feeling up to it at thewalkcar.com. You can go to thewalkcar.com/store. You can buy a t-shirt and help support us possibly. I haven't done the math. Maybe it's costing us money. And thewalkcar.com/advertise. I think last week we went with a Chinese company that could come in and advertise. I don't really know who we want to get. Nissan. Welcome
Nissan.
to the game again. You got a mighty handsome
Back in the
looking.
game.
Yeah, you got a mighty handsome looking vehicle. Come on, what is it? Walkout.com/advertise. Come and drop us a note. See what we can do for you, where we actually, maybe drive your vehicle and try to figure out what side the charging plugs are on. And I don't know. I usually say I don't know what's going on next week, but once again, I don't know what's going on next week. So I'll find out when you do. See you, Ed.
All right.